Hello students, let's read the problem. And it says, the length of a rectangle is 2 inches more than 2 times its width. The area is 144 square inches. What is the length in inches of the rectangle? Record your answer and fill in the bubbles on the grid below. Okay, so what is it that I'm looking for? Well, I'm looking for the length of my rectangle. That's basically the last thing that I need to do, right? And they're giving us some kind of description about the rectangle, and they're comparing the length and the width. And I also know that the area is 144 square inches, okay? So if you ask me, the first thing that I would do is draw a rectangle, right? Because I want to make sure that I know what am I comparing. Okay, so mine is right here. Go ahead and draw yours. So that's my rectangle, okay? Now, what they're comparing is the length and the width. This is my length, and this is my width. Is that right? Okay, and the comparison that they're doing is that the length of the rectangle is 2 inches more. Now think about what it means when you say more. It means that I am gonna add 2 to something, but I know that I need to add 2. Is that right? Okay, and then it goes on. It says 2 times the width. So 2 times the width will be 2W. Is that right? So the length now, it doesn't have a number, but it has an expression. And the expression is going to be 2W plus 2. That's my length. Okay? And the width, of course, is the W by itself. So the first thing I want to do is I need to write down the formula for the area for the rectangle. And that will be length times width. And the area is 144 square inches. I'm just going to write down the number 144, but we know that it's square inches, right? The length is going to be represented with 2W plus 2, and the width is just the W. Is that right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do distributive property, and that will give me 2W squared plus 2W. Are you with me? Basically what I did is I multiply my width times each term on the first term. Got it? Now what I want to do is I want to move the 144 to the right. So I am going to say minus 144 minus 144. Remember, whatever you do on one side, you do it to the other side, right? So this goes to a 0. And now I got 2W squared plus 2W minus 144. We can either do the problem from there, or I can take out one of the factors, right? Remember, that's one of the things that you can always do, and that will make your problem a little bit easier, more than likely. Okay, so I do see that they all have a 2 in common. Therefore, inside the parentheses, I am going to end it up with W squared plus W. And remember, the way that I'm getting these numbers is by saying 2 times what gives me that term. So now 2 times what gives me 144. Well, 2 times 72, but it's a minus, so I'm going to say minus 72. Okay, so now I'm going to use those values to find the factors. And the way that I find the factors, if you recall, is by, well, there's different ways to do it, right? I always like to do an X and a little table. And if you look at some of the videos that we did earlier for finding factors, this is the way that I'm doing it. So this will be A times C, which will be 1 times negative 72. B will be a 1, and A, it's a 1. Okay, and on the T, I'm looking for two numbers that when I multiply them, it gives me a negative 72. but when I add them, gives me a positive 1. And you can start 1 times 72, 2 times so on and so on. But since that's not what I'm explaining right now, I'm going to let you know that I can multiply 8 times 9 to get 72, but one of them needs to be negative, right? So I'm going to say negative 8. But it can also be 8 times negative 9. And in both cases, I do get a negative 72, right? But on the right side, I need to add those numbers. This will give me a positive 1. The one on the bottom will give me a negative 1. And this is the one that I'm looking for. Is that coming back? Okay, so my two numbers that I'm going to write down will be negative 8 and a positive 9. And remember that A is the one that carries the X. Therefore, this will be one of my factors, and this will be the second factor, okay, which I am going to write down on the other side. So one of my factors will be X minus 8, and the other one will be X plus 9. Is that right? So now I'm going to solve for X on both. So I said X minus 8 equals 0. So X will be equals to 8, and that will be one of my solutions. On the other side, I will get X plus 9 equals 0. And when I solve for X, remember it's like you take away 9 on both sides. Yes, my answer will be negative 9. Now, this is another solution, right? But think about this. And I know I wrote X's, right? But for us, it's going to be W's, right? So I'm going to say W equals 8 and W equals negative 9. Okay, so this will be my solutions. We're so used to write X's, right, all the time. But that's okay. We just change them to my W's. Now, I cannot have W equals to a negative 9 because we're talking about the length of a rectangle, right? And if I write the negative 9, it is very likely that I will end up with a negative number. And no, I cannot end up with negative numbers, right? So I'm going to try the W equals 8. So if W is 8, right, then my length will be 2 times 8 plus 2. And that will give me an positive 18, right? If you write the negative 9, it will be a negative number. And like I said, we cannot have the length of a rectangle as a negative, right? Therefore, the question was asking me to find the length of the rectangle. So guess what? I found the answer. The answer is going to be positive 18 because I'm replacing the W on my problem, right? So I will write down 18 here, and it's positive, okay? Now, even though it's not needed for you to bubble in the positive, I just like doing it. This is a 1, and this is an 8. And that will be my answer.